Welcome to day 3 of Breakfast from Roth. My name is Bob Babbitt. We're brought to you by Nitro and Flapjack. And that's Rayner, who's not only an accordion player, but a swimmer. He's lost 20 pounds, and he will be swimming on Sunday morning. Our first guest finished second last year in Kona. Breakthrough race. 6 Ironman wins around the world. Mr. Luke McKenzie, one of the premier cyclists in the sport for sure. Luke, how the heck are you?
I'm great, Bob. It's exciting to be here in Roth for the first time, and it's a race that I've always had on my to-do list.
Yeah.
And it's, I'm finally here. I remember being a small child, reading of Jürgen Zach, Loda Leader, Thomas Hellriegel winning this iconic event in Roth, and I'd always wanted to do it, and I can't believe it's taken me this long to finally get here. I'm super excited.
Well, it's interesting because I remember talking to Mac years ago, and he says, when you're in Australia, you're reading all the magazines, and you're looking at St. Croix and Wildflower and Roth and Kona, and there's all these bucket list races that you want to do. And so this one is one of those for you. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, like I said, you just saw this race, back in probably in the 90s was when I was really paying a lot of attention to it. Luke Van Leerd, 7:51 here one year, and I just remember thinking, wow, how did he do that? And it's just something that sort of captured the triathlon's world's sort of attention, and it's become that huge iconic event that you've got to do. And I think it's one that I personally would really love to have on the resume, and I think every pro triathlete would love to have on the resume. It's it's a renowned fast course. There's been the last 8 years, the last 8 of 10 years, the winner has gone under 8 hours here. So
it's going to be sub 8 hours.
Yeah, and with the quality of field here, I believe that it's possibly the strongest field that's ever assembled here. So it's definitely going to take a sub 8 hour result, and I think probably we could see up to 5 or so guys going under 8 hours, which I hope to be one of them. That's a personal goal of mine. I came here with more so the intent to get that personal best time. I really think that sub 8 hours is something that I'm capable of if I put it all together, and that's what I'm here to do.
So when you set this up, the thought was, hey, I want to see if I can go under 8 hours. Winning would be great, but if I go sub 8 hours, I'm a happy guy.
Yeah, I mean, to say that you're going to win it, I mean, there's the list as long as
you can't control that.
Like, honestly, I think on any given day, there's 5 or 6 guys that can win this event, and I think a podium here would be a very good result and something that I can take away leading into Kona.
Right.
But yeah, more so, I think the sub 8 hours is something that I've really been training for. I've had the splits broken down right next to my treadmill in my gym at home, and I look at them every day, and I think they're achievable, and I've been training towards that, and that's the goal.
What are those splits?
It appears that it would take about a 45-minute swim, about a 4:15 bike, and about a 2:50 marathon to break the 8.
Yeah,
and then it's a matter of improving on those splits,
right?
If you want to go faster than that. So that's sort of what I've been looking at on my little whiteboard next to my treadmill for seems like a long time. It's probably been 10 or 12 weeks now. So whether that all comes together on race day, apparently it's going to be quite hot, which I'm excited about.
Yeah, I mean, look at when I look at your resume from Ironman Japan to Ironman Japan to Malaysia, China, Brazil. It's not like a lot. You're not talking about chilly places. You're not talking Antarctic.
Honestly, I was a little bit nervous coming here. The last week I've been in Morzine, France, and we've had quite cold weather and rain, and I was a bit nervous turning up here, thinking that could potentially be what the weather was. Yeah. But the heat, it's been really nice, and I'm really looking forward to a hot race. I think I do well in the heat, and it's probably just growing up in Australia in the humidity of Queensland. I think that sort of serves you well for the hotter races, and I guess that's sort of where I've built my sort of little niche in my career is racing the hotter races. Yeah. So the hotter the better for me on Sunday.
What's interesting is you've been around a long time, but when you do something like take second in Kona and lead for a chunk of the day, it changes perceptions of people on the outside. Does it change perceptions for someone like yourself who's like, oh, wait a second, you know what? Why can't I win that race? And why can't I win this race?
Yeah, I mean, I always felt like I had that in me. It was just a matter of putting it together. And Kona's that tricky place where, you know, it's a little bit trial and error for some people. Some people, you know, hit it straight away. Guys like Craig Alexander, you know,
Luke Van Leer,
they just come and it's just natural to them. And then there's guys like Mark Allen, Macca that, you know, and I feel like I'm sort of in that boat as well. It's a matter of piecing it together. And I've had slow improvement there, and I broke into the top 10 a couple of years ago, and then sort of realised, okay, well, if I'm in the top 10, then I've got the ability to get into the top 5 and then onto the podium and maybe potentially win it. So last year, you know, Ironman Cairns was a big turning point for me. I really went to that race with a bit of a chip on my shoulder. I really wanted to do something in that event, and it was a bit of a pivotal moment in my career. I was like, you know, a bit make or break, like, you know, do something here. And, you know, I went for it in Cairns and just had a really good day and felt great, and came away from that. And Macca was there actually, and he said, mate, if you do that in Kona, you can win. And I thought, you know what, like, he's right. And so I just kept that ball rolling after that, and kept with, you know, that gut instinct and the philosophy that sort of got me that result in Cairns leading into Kona. And, you know, it just sort of, it happened how it happened. It just sort of go for it and see what happens.
What I love is how people got into the sport. And for you, it was basically Ironman Australia, and you were out there at that last aid station, right? Between 25 miles and 26 miles. And when those leaders would come by, Paulie Kiru, who won that race 8,000 times, you would run that last mile, right? And you were how old?
So I think the first year I went out there, I was trying to, you know, go over this with my father. I think it was like 86 or 87. Was the first year I was out there. But the years that I probably remember the most were the Paulie Kiru years. And, you know, I remember going out to the Foster Aquatic Centre because I used to swim out there daily. And, you know, I knew all the pro triathletes. So the day that I swam in the same lane as Paulie Kiru, and, you know, I was and he had his zip bike there at the pool, and I was just like, man, I want one of those bikes one day. And I mean, so they would come through at that last aid station. I think it was like the 40-kilometre mark there in Foster, and I'd hand off Paulie or Holger Lorenz or Jürgen Zach or someone a drink, and then I'd be off after them, and I followed them all the way to the finish line. And, you know, Foster had a really great finish line, and I would be nervous to go up the finish chute, so I'd be like, you know, I want to do that one day. So, you know, that got me intrigued with the sport, and, you know, I always, you know, knew that one day I wanted to be a professional triathlete, and it's cool that, you know, 20 odd years later,
you're loving it. And you're still
I'm still loving it, and I'm in places like Roth where, you know, it's back in the 90s when I was following the sport as a young kid. You know, it's really cool to finally be here, and just, you know, you walk around the place, you feel like you already know it. You know, you've heard about all these, you know, the Solaraberg and just these iconic things. It's like going to Hawaii for the first time and seeing Ali'i Drive and the Queen K. So it's much like that. I had goosebumps coming into the town, you know, welcome triathletes, and it was, I literally had goosebumps. I was like, this is cool.
Well, and then when you were here, you've been here for a while, so you've probably ridden up Solar Hill. And what was it like just riding on the course you've been reading about and watching for years? I
did a full loop of the course 2 days ago, and I love it. It's a great bike course, and the roads are super, super nice and fast. And, you know, I think the bike course really suits me. It's those punchy little sort of climbs, and then the long sort of.
You can some power downhills.
So
I
think
where you can ride, where you're not just you can push on those downhills. It's not like you're just sitting.
So a little bit like Hawaii in a way, you know, with the long sort of sustained downhills and the higher cadence sort of descent. So I can see how it's super fast, and especially if we get a day like today with zero wind. And I think, and we've got a stellar field here. You know, guys like Dirk Bockel,
who looks really lean,
and Echo Lanos, like that. Yes, they're going to be pushing.
Joe Gambles, I think, is going to be interesting.
Joe,
I think, is going to be really interesting. He's coming off of just winning the 4th time in a row at Boulder. And he's like, hey, I think I'm going to surprise some people.
So it's, you know, it's going to be interesting, and I think it's going to be great for the sport. You know, everyone here pushing each other, and that's like what I said. We're going to see quite a few guys go under 8, I think.
So you're not what we call a tactic guy. You basically go, right? And when you talk tactics, it's get out of the water and go for it.
I mean, there's an element of tactic. I mean, within reason.
Right.
I think going too early with it'd be like in Kona if you just went straight out of the gate solo by yourself. I think that's a lot of matches to burn early, and I think that's a similar situation here when you've got the quality of field like Dirk and Echo. If you burn your matches too early, it's going to come back to haunt you. So it's going to be about being a little bit patient in the beginning. So not so much the tactic that I'm used to where, just go for it. I think it worked for Dirk last year, but I honestly think there's just a few extra riders here this year that's going to keep you in check. And so I think that second lap's going to be the pivotal sort of point, when we're hitting those hills the second time. That's when you're going to see the real sort of the race sort of stretch out a little bit and see where people lay. So I think tactics, there is an element of tactics, but at the same time I love a race where you just go for it,
especially when you know that you've got to go sub 8 to win.
Yeah,
you got to do
exactly.
It. So you also your life has changed a lot. Besides finishing second, now you're a dad.
Yeah,
which is probably the coolest thing in the world. Probably something you weren't quite thinking in the plan 5 years ago. Hey, you know what?
No, I didn't. I never thought I would be a father. And
really?
Honestly, I mean, I just to tell you the truth, triathlon's a very sort of selfish sport, and with the travel and stuff, you just don't see room in there for life with a small child.
Yeah.
And it's been great. Beth and I are having a blast since Wynn's come along. She's such a good baby, and we've brought her here on this trip, which we're a little bit nervous about.
Sure.
Only at that point she was only a bit over 5 weeks old when we first left. So, but she's traveling really well. She sleeps really well, and she's already got a little personality. It's so much fun. And I mean, we couldn't do it without my family. My family came over to the States to meet her, and then they've come on to Europe to be here and support us at this event, and that's allowed Beth to get out too and get back into her training. So
she's doing an Ironman in the fall.
That's the plan.
She's thinking about that.
Yeah, she's thinking about it. So wow. I mean, I think her training already is on track for that. And she was doing 5-mile runs even the week that Wynn was born. Going to swim squad and doing 4,000 yards.
Oh my God.
I think everyone at the Y back in San Diego was expecting a water birth there. She was very active in her pregnancy, and I think that sort of served her well to potentially get back into it a lot quicker than, she might have expected.
So a lot of times we look back at where people came from in the sport. We talked about you running in with Paulie Kiru, but there was also a point where, probably in the early 2000s, you and Craig Alexander are sleeping on air mattresses and in an apartment in Encinitas. And when you look back at that time, when you guys, and for people from Australia, when you decide you're going pro in a sport, it's not like you go and come back. It's too far. Yep. When you go to Europe or you come to the States, and it's a commitment.
Yep.
So when you and Crowe are like laying on the air mattresses wondering what the hell we're doing and where the heck is going, and you look back at that now, the success both of you have had.
Yeah.
I mean, do you guys ever talk about that? Like,
all the time.
Hey, dude, remember when we were laying on a air mattress wondering who's going to be able to afford Taco Bell?
Yeah. I mean, I think there's always been that, if you go back all the way to Greg Welsh and those guys that were a little bit the pioneers for that for us Aussies, they left Australia and committed to a life in the States. And, those first few years, they're tough. You're there, you're cutting your teeth, you're living race to race, and it's not glamorous. I think it's quite easy to perceive that life as a professional triathlete is great. You get given all this sponsored equipment, and you might get this and that, but honestly, to start with, it's a grind. And I think that's sort of what has served a lot of us Aussies well, is sort of getting through those tough years and really sticking with it through those times. There was times where I'd call my mum and dad. I was 20, 21 back in those days, and I'd be literally down to my last couple of bucks, and they'd be like, "Nah, we'll spot you a few bucks, and you can stay there and do this next race, and you might win the local Carlsbad Triathlon. There's your $1,000 paycheck to keep you going for another couple of weeks. For another couple of weeks." And I think a few years, it wasn't too long after that where I was living with Crowe on air mattresses in San Diego, and he won the Lifetime race. And that was huge for him. You know, all of a sudden, this is a guy that went from shopping at the 99-cent store to winning the world's richest race.
And being able to travel with his child now and take his wife with him.
Exactly. And, you know, for me, that was, you know, obviously I'd train with him day in, day out. And, you know, I had a gauge of, you know, I could do that.
If he did it, why can't I do it?
It's a matter of sticking with it, and it's tough at first, and you know that you'll get the sponsor knockbacks, and you might go to a few races and just get your butt kicked, but it was just a matter of sticking with it, and yeah, it's great to sit back, you know, at a race like Kona or something, and talk with Crowe and some of the guys, Belly, you know, that really did it tough back in those days, and now they're sort of, you know, they're really kicking goals and doing well, and it's really it's humbling to come from that to where we've been able to get to.
With the other thing that as a dad, and I saw it with Crowe and I saw it with Macca, it sort of changes you in a different way from a, you know, it almost makes you a little more balanced, a little more not beating yourself up after a bad race or a bad training day, because when you come home, there's somebody who loves you unconditionally every single time you come through the door. Yeah,
I mean, I'm sort of finding it a bit tough in the respect that when I go out to training, I'm missing Win and I'm missing Beth now, you know, like it's tough to sort of, you know, get my head around that. But coming home, that's awesome, you know, just coming in from a tough day's training and just lying there with her on my chest, and we just have our afternoon naps together, and it's so cool, you know, like I'd never thought I would be a father, and and I'm glad I am, you know, it's something it's changed me for the better, I think. You know, you're not as wound up. You're not as self-centered. That's the thing, and I think that's something, you know, going into the rest of my career, that now I've got something to race for. You know, like it's something that
motivation
in those tough spots in races, I can draw on that, and that's definitely going to be. You know, I can see how Crowe, Macca, these guys who have had family, utilize that to their benefit.
Well, because you were out doing those rides, I'm sure there's a lot of times you're thinking, man, this is really a selfish way to make a living, and but the reality is you're not just doing it for you anymore.
Yeah, and that's the exciting thing. You know, I think, you know, there becomes a time in your career, you know, I've been doing it for 20 odd years, you need that fresh motivation, you know, and it's like, you know, it's tough to get out the door and do big 6-hour rides year in, year out, week in, you know, it's tough. And so now you've got this new exciting thing in your life that really gives you that motivation to get out.
I love that. And in terms of, if you look back, obviously the race in Kona was such a big one. Was that the most important race of your career? Or is there something earlier on that was like, okay, this race told me that I can be a pro and I can make a living here?
Yeah, I think going and winning Ironman Japan the first time was something that sort of like gives you that, you know, that realization that, I belong here and I can do it. And then I think, you know, I was able to get a few Ironman wins in the preceding years, but Ironman Cairns was a bit of a pivotal one for me because I'd had a little bit of a drought. I think it was almost 2.5 years since I'd won an Ironman, and you know, I'd been in some really big quality races like Frankfurt and some other ones in the States where I felt I can do really well, and I to tell you the truth, I got my butt kicked and I just did some silly things, and I was sort of, you know, I was on a little bit of a plateau at that point. And I went to Cairns and I was like, all right, this is a race that surely suits you. You can do really well. And I just really focused on that. And that's what sort of turned things around going into Kona last year. And I think maybe that was probably one of the most important races, more so than Kona.
Yeah. And so what you learned about yourself was that you could focus and you could get what you, if you did the work, you could get the results.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you've been doing it for 20 years. You know how to train yourself. It's a matter. It becomes the mental aspect of the side of the sport that becomes the most crucial at that point. And I think, just the belief and knowing that you belong and that you can do it is half the battle.
When I look back, I look at. Pete Jacobs finished second in Kona, then he won it, right? And then Macca was second, and he won it. Crowe was second, and then he won it. Sort of a pattern there. McKenzie was second, then she won it.
Welchie, I think,
Welchie had been second.
No pressure.
No pressure there, but What do you look at that?
Yeah, I think you look at and even Freddie, who won this last year. I think he was on the podium prior. Yes. It's just something that you've really got to do your time in Kona, I feel, and it's something that once you've sort of realised you've got the potential to win it, and a second place really gives you that that belief that you can do it. And so I think that's definitely something that I'm taking into the race this year, whether it's this year or the next few years. That I know that I have what it takes to be right up there in Kona. So, it's just a matter of sticking to your guns and keeping that belief there each year you go back.
It seems like over the last couple of years, your body type has changed. You've gotten leaner.
Yep.
Was that a conscious effort?
Yeah, it is. I knew that if I wanted to run with the best in the sport, that I needed to lose a little bit of weight, and it's something that I don't focus on so much anymore. It was just something that over a couple of years I was able to lean down a little bit, and it's definitely helped me in my running. And I feel that if I'm going to be competitive with these guys, you turn up and you see an Andreas Raelert next to you. This guy is like skin and bone, and that guy is just tearing up the run course in Kona. And it's obvious that the less muscle, the less weight that you have to carry around the course is going to be beneficial. So Kona is probably the one particular race each year that I really focus on trying to get my weight down. And if I can be in the 60-something kgs instead of the 70-something kgs, well, then I know that I'm ready.
Luke, thanks so much for taking time. I know it's hard to leave Little Win at home and come talk to an idiot like me, but I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, Bob, and I've got a little present for you. I hope you can wear on Sunday my Luke McKenzie trucker hat. So
what do you think?
Yeah,
does that look good? Me and Luke with the trucker hat.
Yeah, enjoy the race on Sunday, and thanks for having me.
And hopefully on Monday.
Hopefully I see you on Monday.
Hopefully see you on Monday. Again, we are brought to you by Nitro and Flapjack. This is Breakfast from Roth. My name is Bob Babbitt, and Rainer, take us out.